Awareness Month, and we are focusing on that this morning. We're talking about the hurdles that many people face in terms of trying to get healthcare. One of them is stigma, and perhaps shedding more light on mental health could help in aiding people get the courage to step up and get themselves treated, because as we are told, treatment is available. It's just a matter of getting it. But at the same time, COVID-19 is not making it easier for most people who are suffering from mental health issue, and as has been predicted by Dr. Eric Njuguna, who's with us in studio this morning, we might see an uptick in cases or problems or severity of the problems that might already be occurring in certain persons. Also joining the conversation is Brian Emmanuel, who has experienced seeking healthcare in terms of mental illness, and is here to give us insights into what it is like. And I'd like to start with you, Emmanuel. Now, when we look at treatment, a lot of people assume that it is impossible to get it, or perhaps even haven't overcome the hurdle of, knowing that this is a mental health problem and I won't be judged for it, and therefore I can go out to get treatment. So would you tell us your experience with that, and how easy is it to get help and treatment for mental health? For example, in your case, how did you get to a point of getting treatment? Was it an intervention by someone, or did you yourself go get treatment?
So what happened is, when I was in high school, I was going through a lot of depression, and I didn't know it was depression, and I was self-harming. I had attempted suicide several times, and it escalated to a point where, after high school, there's a time I attempted suicide, and I wasn't able to complete suicide. So after that happened, that's when I realized something must be really wrong somewhere, and that's when I found the courage to just open up, because I felt that if I wasn't going to open up, things are going to be not going to be okay, and I'm going to leave people behind who are going to be hurting, and I didn't want any of that. So I opened up to a friend,
right?
And when I opened up to her, she actually referred me to a friend of hers who's a psychologist, and that's when my treatment started. And that's when I started even learning more about mental health and the illness that I was coping with. And later on, I was first diagnosed with bipolar. So after some time, the diagnosis actually turned out, because I continued. I was in and out of therapy.
Yes.
To be honest, because the medication can be really tough on you. So at times you find yourself, it needs a lot of discipline.
Right.
So at some point I stopped my medication, and then I went back, and all this time I could experience relapses, but I was able to access, the help that I needed for like medication and therapy. So it was still accessible.
Okay. So, sorry to interrupt you, but now that you are self-isolating, perhaps working from home or staying at home a lot to protect yourself, does that interfere with your motivation to keep up with your medication?
No, it doesn't. But what has been greatly affected is the feeling of loneliness, and it can really mess you up. Personally, it took a toll on me a month ago. It's already a month now, and I actually went to a place where I actually started having suicidal thoughts. Because I was feeling all of a sudden I was feeling alone, withdrawn, and stranded. I was feeling stranded, and it triggered some emotions and feelings of hopelessness and all that. So I relapsed.
Okay.
But I was able to
Also, would you say that you have a support system, maybe a family around you that helps you cope?
Yes. Actually, I stay close with a cousin of mine who always comes and checks in on me. There's a support group that's online that I engage in also. But it also, when you talk about a support system,
Yeah.
these are people you're able to reach out to, and they can come to your aid, and they can intervene on like physically.
Yeah.
They can be there with you. So right now, most of the people that I are in my support system are not accessible right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can only talk over the phone. We can't meet up because there's a lot of hindrances right now, and that tends to make one feel stranded.
Now, Dr. Njuguna, he is talking about the triggers right now, and you did mention that it's important to have these support groups, maybe online or offline. Like he says, he has a cousin who checks up on him. But then when we are going online, there's so many triggers right now. We know this is literally exposing yourself perhaps to some very good things or some very bad things when it comes to mental health. So how can people actually, circumnavigate that?
Thank you. I mean, one of the things we are encouraging people to do, our people, is to make deliberate choices as to what content, that you're going to expose yourself to.
Yes.
A lot of positive content. Limit your exposure about what is going on. Limit your fascination with the numbers and exactly what's going on in which country, and watching videos about, how many people are dying. It's important to get some degree of information, but then again, too much information can push you into a dark place. So support groups, like I said, are very important, and we have to reach out to our support systems. Something else, Trixie, I'd like to point out is that in addition to getting support, you might be surprised that actually giving support to other people who might be going through a rough time in the way of a phone call or a video call or just checking up on them could actually be very much part of, it could actually be very healing. Therapeutic, exactly, for you. So that's something I would like you I would like our people to try. Each one reach one. Let's each of us try to reach out to someone who might be going through a hard time. We know who they are, and definitely we'll find that might actually heal us.
What about bullying? Because I do imagine that the kind of responses, comments, a lack of likes or too many likes can actually influence someone's mental health status in a negative way. What do you think about that?
I think that, the issue of cyberbullying is a recent phenomenon. It's something that I have dealt with in terms of my clients. And it's something that speaks to the psychological state of you as an individual. And it tells me more about who you are as a person and what you have gone through. And most of the time I find that cyberbullying is not different from the bullying that we experienced earlier on in childhood, growing up in boarding school and all that. It's only that it's happening in the cyberspace.
Different platform.
And one of the ways to deal with bullying actually has been, one of the recognized therapeutic strategies has been to develop, with your therapist, you are taken through a process where you develop assertiveness. You develop a bit of a psychological backbone, and you're able to sort of stand up, ignore, or deal with the bullies, because definitely bullies tend to stand down when they see that you're assertive and you're able to speak up for yourself.
To speak up or stand up for yourself. And he did talk about, Emmanuel, about his thinking of suicide at a very young age. How can parents watch out for triggers? And sometimes these triggers are offset with social media. How can they watch out for such,
Absolutely. I'd like first of all to commend Brian. I'm extremely excited at this time. We are in a space in Kenya where someone like Brian, congratulations Brian, can actually talk about suicide and actually just take us through based on, we are coming from a culture where it was taboo to talk about some of these subjects. And if any people died from suicide, no one would really want to talk about how they died. So congratulations, Brian. You are an example of where we are headed as a country, and I'd like you to keep it up. As far as parenting is concerned, we could have this conversation all day. There's a lot to talk about it. But the most important thing is that parents have to spend time with their children. Parents have to know what their children are consuming. The days of lazy parenting are over. As parents, and I'm a parent myself, we have to take charge. We have to know your child is on the phone, is on the iPad. What exactly are they watching? You've provided Wi-Fi in the house. What's going on? Have you put on parental, codes and all that? So just the way growing up, we didn't have internet, but we had our parents know where we are, who we are playing with, who are our friends. So that we have gotten into an era where the parenting has to also transition. We have to take it into the cyberspace as well. We have to know exactly what websites our children have been on. You have to get on those devices and just look at the history, find out what, because there's a very easy way of doing that. You can actually just get online and find out how to be able to track what your child is watching and who they're interacting with.
Okay, for you, Emmanuel, do you find social media triggering?
Yes, social media can be triggering because, like, for example, there was a time, okay, social media always has a trend, and people always try to keep up with trends. And whenever you're not keeping up with the trend, especially for young people, you feel left out. And at the end of the day, you find that these young persons' self-esteem is greatly affected. And whatever is displayed on social media also makes people even, compare themselves with other people wanting this kind of a lifestyle without realizing that most of these people who are putting out their lifestyles out there on social media, most of them are curated and just it's something that's just created. So people, young people especially, are greatly affected. Their mental health is greatly affected because one thing, they're trying to keep up with trends. They're trying to live a certain lifestyle they can't even afford in the first place. Because we even have people actually fall into depression because they don't get certain amount of likes and engagements on their social media platforms. And you find that some of these individuals even go to extreme measures so that they can keep up with their social media. And when it doesn't work, you find these people having self-resentment, and they get frustrated, and eventually they even fall into depression. And this
So would you say that when you're dealing with such things, do you follow Daktari's advice of, asserting yourself and having a backbone, or would you say you give yourself breaks or limit your time on social media? How do you handle social media yourself?
Okay, for me, social media is a place where I get information. It's a place where I advocate for mental health awareness. So it's a place where I get content that is useful and builds my my knowledge as an individual. So when it comes to social media, I think it's all about perspective and how you can use social media, because social media can either work for you or against you. It all depends on how you use your social media, because at the end of the day, social media is not bad, it's how you're using it. Are you abusing it, or you're using it for your good?
So, and as we wind up, Dr. Njuguna, I'd like you to tell the people watching at home what, the biggest thing I think with mental health illness might be recognizing that you have a problem, because you did talk about people going to hospitals with headaches and backaches, and yet they're facing severe mental health problems. So, I mean, there's what I've heard being called a spectrum. There's the people who are at the level where they need to be institutionalized, and those that are having mild issues. So how does one go through that thought process of, now I think this is something that is mental and I need to get help?
Well, that's a very broad question. But I would say that typically I tell my, I would tell our people to look at what we call, just listen to yourself, look at your body and your mind, and generally, if things like sleeping is becoming a problem, you're sleeping too little or sleeping too much, your appetite is a problem, you feel like you want to withdraw from other people, you're getting very anxious. If you notice any of those symptoms, then you're better off coming to someone like me, a professional, to sit down and actually assess you. And then that person will be able to tell you where you lie on the spectrum and what needs to be done. Does this from, you know, the habit that we usually have of talking to just somebody else, or just talking to, you know, just talking to a friend about what you're going through, because they may not have the necessary expertise. We are in a situation where we have plenty of health workers, mental health workers in this country, and even our primary health workers who are the, you know, the first contact with the patients actually are now being trained on mental health, and will be able to point you in the right direction.
Emmanuel, as we wind up, could you give perhaps some advice to someone who's watching and feels they might have a problem that needs addressing?
Okay, the first thing I would say is if you suspect that you're experiencing a mental health problem, first thing you should realize is that whatever you're feeling is not a crime, and it's normal.
Absolutely.
Because it's okay to not be okay. It's something that we actually we're so used to tell people as mental health advocates. We tell people it's okay not to be okay. So always open up. Whatever you're feeling, make sure that you're opening up about it. Because the moment that you open up about what you're feeling, that's the moment that you start getting the help that you need. And also be gentle with yourself.
Absolutely.
And also be gentle with yourself, and know that whatever you're going through at that moment won't last forever.
Absolutely.
It's something that you can manage, it's something that you can cope with, and you can lead a normal life. Like for me, for example, I'm right here with you guys, and I'm communicating with you guys just like any other person. And this should also make people realize that mental illnesses are just like any other illnesses. It's not something that can hinder you from being who you're supposed to be, from doing what you're supposed to be, and being productive in your personal space and out there in your society.
Wonderful. That is Brian Emmanuel coming to us via Zoom. Thank you so much for giving us or opening up to us about mental health and your personal experience, as well as Dr. Eric Njuguna, who has given us his expertise on psychiatry and mental health. Thank you so much for joining this conversation, but we also encourage you to keep up with the discussion online. And Michael, do we have some responses?
Yes, we do, and that is response to the question that had been asked earlier. Do you think the needs of the mentally ill have been well taken care of during this pandemic? Let me just read a few comments that have come through. But before that, thank you for the info, Daktari, and also Emmanuel for being brave enough to come out and speak about this. One of the areas I think that was greatly, you know, in need of being talked about is how to identify that one is actually getting depressed, because lack of sleep and some of those things. One might just think it's because I've not been working, so my body, you know, is getting used to sleep, and therefore I cannot sleep at night, but there could be a bigger issue. But anyway, Jacob Matlala says that no, in fact, I have started to see cases rising. As you know, majority are genetically with it, but corona job loss have opened cans of worms, and it had made it worse. We have Jessica who says, yes, this is an illness that is very subtle, and I have seen many of my friends get depressed without even knowing. Joseph says, thank you for the good advice from Daktari, and let us all ensure that we are our brother's keepers. So that question, keep your comments coming. Do you think the needs of the mentally ill have been well taken care of during this pandemic? We're likely to see a spike, given that there's job losses, there's a change of environment, there's a lot that was not anticipated to happen that has happened, with people also staying home and not doing their usual, you know, routines that they were used to. So do let us know what your thoughts are. It brings us to 20 minutes after 8, and we're going to take a short break right here on Morning Express. But do stay with us. We've got more coming up on the other side of the break.